Hey everyone, I'm Cary Smith and I'm sitting here with Amar Shah, and we're both with Client First Capital. And today we're talking about retirement, but specifically we're talking about the four questions you should be asking yourself before you retire. So Amar, so you and I have talked about this a little bit in the past, right? And we know that there's, probably there's a lot more questions than just four, but these are four key ones that are pretty important for couples to resolve before they retire, right? That they should be asking themselves. And, one of the first ones is, when and where are you going to retire? So let's just chat about that for a moment.
Yeah, I think that this is like the big one, right? Like, there may be an event that happened at work, and then your attention now shifts from like, when am I going to retire and where are we going to retire, right? And I think for most couples or single individuals, this conversation about when and where is very important because it impacts when you take Social Security distribution income, when you take IRA distributions, when do you start pensions, all those different timeline pieces start to impact, but also taxes, because if you decide that you want to retire in a different state or be closer to grandchildren, uh, that's going to impact the tax calculus in terms of when and where you want to retire.
Yeah, and it definitely can impact your happiness as well. And so I'll just use myself. I retired from a corporate job about a year and a half ago. And, the first half of my career was in San Antonio, which is, by the way, where most of my family and my wife's family still live today. And the second half was in Phoenix, the Scottsdale area, where we don't have a lot of family. So one of the questions we had to talk about is, do we move back to San Antonio where we're from, or are we happy with the networks we've built here in the Phoenix area, and do we stay here, right? And so it can impact your happiness index as well. And so there's a lot of considerations when you think about the when and where that are not just financial.
Yeah. And the second thing here is the type of retirement that you want, right? You could have two couples that, or a couple with two spouses that could probably have different perspectives on what retirement means to them, right? For some, it could be a second career or starting in a nonprofit or being more involved, but just in a different angle. And for somebody else, it could mean it's time to travel and do all the things that are on my bucket list and get those done immediately while I have my health, my flexibility, my mobility, right? To kind of do those things. And that question, really, the type of retirement that you want to have will impact several different areas in the actual planning process.
Yeah, I'll guarantee you, if you have two people, they have different thoughts about what retirement looks like. And I think one of the big benefits of retirement planning and sitting down with a professional is those two people start to put onto paper and start to verbalize what their thoughts are, right? And then from that, they start to put together, what their retirement is going to look like in a way that gives them both what they're looking for, right? But sometimes in the absence of a professional retirement planning conversation, those conversations don't happen until it's too late.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Carrie, I'm so glad you said put pen to paper because I think that is the number one thing anybody can do when they're trying to organize their thoughts and what the future looks like is really putting pen to paper in terms of identifying and really describing what is it that you want. And one last point here with the type of retirement, uh, you know, that type of, if you've been a saver your whole life, you've amassed a significant amount of wealth, you may have the ability to have the best retirement possible, right? But on the other side of that scale of the best retirement possible is what your legacy will be, right? So for some people, uh, gifting to children, grandchildren is a big part of their planning, right? But on the other side of the scale is how much money can they actually spend on themselves, right? So
Right.
balancing that and identifying the type of retirement will also allow for other financial goals like estate planning, legacy, charitable giving to kind of come into the picture to kind of figure out where's the middle ground, or where do you feel most comfortable with all that?
Yeah, very good. Another thing that people need to ask themselves is, what do they do in the event of a health crisis with one of the two of them, right? And those things are more likely, I think, as we get older, to happen. And they can change retirement and a person's view of retirement very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we're working with somebody right now that's just found out that they have cancer, right? And the treatment process for this type of cancer is a long, arduous process, right? So imagine working all your life and you're in retirement. This is the third year in retirement. You have all this travel planned, and now that you've come down with this news of a long medical process, right? And everybody deals with it in a different way. You just have to identify how do you want to approach these times, because for some people these are the peak retirement years, right?
Yeah.
And so how does that impact the spouse and stuff like that?
Yeah. I want to go back to putting pen to paper for a moment, because sometimes, and this is also the value of having a plan, because sometimes when you go through an illness like cancer, and when you come through it, assuming that you successfully come through it, it changes you and you view the world different, right? And plans, are living, breathing plans, right? And so that may be another event in which you need to meet with your planner, because you see the world differently and you see retirement differently, and you now want to make some changes, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so that's one of the things that could happen there as well.
Yeah, another thing that can happen is a premature death, right? So what if there's not a health event, but one spouse passes away, and the surviving spouse has to kind of figure out, hey, this is not the retirement I planned for, but this is what I have. How do I make the best of it just moving forward, right? And a lot of those conversations are really around, well, what does the next 10 years look like? How do I make this my best next decade, right? Um, and interestingly enough, also those conversations are around are like, how do I maintain the household that I have? One spouse pays all the bills on their credit card. If that spouse were to pass away, you don't have access to that credit card. You don't have access to the online bill pay systems, right? So kind of making sure that there's a transition plan so either spouse can pay bills and continue the household.
Yeah, just the best practice. My wife several years ago thought that she should be the CFO, right, of our family, and so she took over all of that, right?
Yeah.
And it's transitioned back to me now, but the beauty of that is she has a really good grasp over where everything is, and all the passwords and access and everything else, and it was good for us to do that, because if something happened to me in the absence of that happening, there's a lot of work that's going to have to be done, for her to figure all of that out. I feel like today we're in a good place, but not all couples have gone through that process.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, these are 4 really good topic areas that you may want to consider to start to have the conversation if you think, retirement's in the next 5 to 10 years. So that way you can kind of get some thought process down, put pen to paper, like Cary mentioned. And if you need a sounding board while you're having these conversations, please reach out to us. Also, please like and subscribe to these videos. It helps other people find our content. And thank you for watching. Anything else, Cary?
No, that's it. Thanks, Amar.
All right, sounds good. Take
See
care.
ya.